He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I'll once again be your host. I'm here with the rest of these Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. Rigby, we'll start with you this week.
Not much going on in my world. Just happy to be talking to Maya Rudolph tonight with you gentlemen. Happy we have a new administration in town. Finally able to wake up in the morning and not have a 7 a.m. panic attack. So that's nice. Feels pretty good.
Case.
Same as Rigby. Excited to hang out with you guys tonight and talk some movies. And we're actually probably going to talk about the most socially relevant Munsons at the Movie alumni with her ability to play Kamala Harris. So excited to get into that a little bit.
Very timely, given everything going on in the world right now. Warren.
Paying attention to movies as much as I can because Houston sports teams are just kind of blowing up everything. So I'm not really paying attention to that. George Springer, I'll miss you. We'll see what can happen. Probably another scandal, right, James? Fuck you.
Did I hear right? Is it true that did James Harden really wear a fat suit to get traded?
I mean, I saw pictures of his first game in Brooklyn, and he was cut.
Ripped.
Yeah, he looked like he lost about 50 pounds over a 2-week span.
There's no lipo that can do that.
I know, like James says, 15 pounds when one rough weekend, that's really all it takes. You go on a bit of a bender and eat a bunch of salty food.
Yeah.
You can hold on to that weight super easy.
That's true.
That's what I was going to share, actually, is much like James Harden, I also can gain and lose 20 pounds depending on if I try during the weekend. And when I saw that and everyone's like, wow, that's crazy. I was like, no, this is just an unspoken rule that all Jameses know is he just stopped eating, shitty food at 4 a.m. and worked out for like 2 days and he lost 20 pounds like it was nothing. It's pretty well known.
My world, nothing too exciting. Mostly I'm just excited to be back with you all and introduce our next guest, Munson. We're here with Lauren Hopkins. Lauren is a higher education professional. She lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's worked from home since before COVID made it cool. She also loved to travel often before COVID made that not cool either. She's learning Italian and usually reads over 50 books a year. Congratulations, that is a lot. When she's not doing all these things, Lauren works as a background actor and has worked on over a dozen films and TV shows. Welcome, Lauren.
Yeah.
Welcome
Welcome to the pod.
We have a star amongst us.
Holy moly, we do.
Just another one, Tell us a little bit about some of these films and TV shows that you've been on.
Well, I got my start in background acting when no one wanted to give me a real job. So if you find yourself in that boat, I would always seek out background acting as a great gig job in this gig economy. Pittsburgh has a pretty vibrant film scene. There's pretty steady film projects coming in thanks to a tax credit in Pennsylvania, and just kind of something that I thought was a lot of fun and started working on stuff. And who doesn't want to go hang out with fun actors all day and also get paid to read books? Because you spend a lot of time sitting around doing nothing. So as I mentioned, I like to read. So get to hang out with actors, get to see how movies are made, get paid to read books. Kind of a win-win-win for me. And
what are some of the movies?
I've prepared 2 Truths and a Lie for Lauren's filmography.
Oh, hell yeah.
2 of these films she's in. 1 of these films she is not. Film number 1, Jack Reacher. Film number 2, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And film number 3, Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, boy.
James, I'll let you go first since you don't normally get to participate in 2 Truths and a Lie.
Jack Reacher is the one that she is not in.
Okay. Kyle?
I'm going to hope that too, because I really want Lauren to have been in Gulliver's Travels. It would bring me joy.
Warren?
I know it's not Jack Reacher. I'm not saying I know it. I know that was filmed in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to say A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
All right. And Rigby?
I think Gulliver's Travels the lie because I feel like that is a movie that wasn't filmed in Pittsburgh. So I'm by process of elimination. That's what I'm going to choose.
Well, very good. Rigby gets it. She was not in Gulliver's Travels. You got a really cool filmography as a background actress.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is sweet.
Yes, I will say if you are looking to easily find me, that's the question that friends ask most often. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is the one where you can most easily see me in the wedding scenes. People always ask, though, I did not get to work with Tom Hanks, and that's kind of a bummer.
I thought you were going to say you were blown up by Bane and Heinz Field in Dark Knight Rises. When you said Pittsburgh and extras, that's kind of the movie that came to mind.
I was there when he blew some stuff up. Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely counts.
Yeah, that counts. That's closer than we all got. That's for sure.
Yes, and we filmed winter scenes on a day in August when it was about 85 degrees.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
It's like Texas, though, so it works.
Right at home there.
Were you able to get offset with any cool props?
I do have a rally towel, I think they called it, from The Dark Knight Rises. They let us keep those, but mostly because we sweat all over them all day, and I think it was too disgusting for us to give them back.
That makes sense.
Do you have a cool, like holy shit star moment where you saw like one of the big stars in one of the movies and you're just, I can't believe I'm watching this person do this?
Yeah, I worked on a movie called Concussion that stars Will Smith.
Wow.
And the day that I filmed, there was only a couple other background actors there that day. And normally there's a hierarchy on sets, and you would not get coffee at the same place that a principal actor would be getting coffee. But that particular day I did. And so I'm getting coffee right next to him, and it's a very weird moment. And he's standing there singing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," because, and it was just one of those moments that I was like, what is happening? And is this my life right now? This is what I am being paid to do today, is to stand here and drink coffee and listen to you sing this song right now.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you and looking forward to the conversation. Birthdays, January 28th. What do we got, Warren?
We've got to start. We're going to do Alan Alda. Huge role in MASH, The Aviator, Wanderlust, and Tower Heist.
Also old.
85, Warren.
Oh!
I think he's old. I think he's been around a long time.
That is old. 80s. 73 again.
76.
79.
80.
85, Rigby on the
Oh
dot.
my God, he's that old?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I sent a pretty misleading gif of him, his role in MASH.
Damn.
But if you were to go look again, I mean, he's dated.
Yeah.
Last up, we've got Elijah Wood.
Ooh.
Lord of the Rings, The Faculty, Green Street Hooligans, Sin City, and The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel.
He's looked like he was 14 his entire life, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
43.
I was going to say 45. I think he's older than he looks.
Well, yeah, because he looks like a child.
I think 40.
38.
Well, then I'll go the other way. Give me 48.
Well, it doesn't matter. Lauren wins 40 on the dot.
Oh.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Over the hill, Elijah Wood.
But that's it. Those are the birthdays. Happy birthday to those people. That's at the end.
All right, so we had 5 actors we threw onto the wheel. The wheel hath spoken, and it is not Woody Harrelson. It's not Cameron Diaz. It's not Daniel Bruhl. And it's not Robin Tunney. Even though, like last time, we talked about the Locklear bots just harassing us, the Robin Tunney fans came out in droves over the past 2 days. I think we had like 7 or 8 different people saying Robin Tunney on our Instagram photo that we posted.
Gotta give the people what they want,
Yeah,
my
the Tunney Honeys.
Yeah,
the Tunney pot.
part of me was hoping we could do her just so we could have a reason to watch Encino Man, Kyle.
No wheezing the juice.
Oh, good grief.
But it is not Robin Tunney. Maybe we know there's some fans out there, so potentially at a later time. But the wheel chose Maya Rudolph. And she's got about 100 credits on her resume. She's got, of everyone we've covered, probably the most diverse array of types of credits in terms of film, TV, shorts, video games, sketches, across the board. So she's pretty diverse when it comes to the type of work she's done in her career. So, as we normally do, we start with a little actor trivia and see if James can stump us.
So, Lauren, what we are doing here is We're going to do 2 truths and a lie. 2 of these facts I'm going to read are true about Maya Rudolph, and one of the facts I'm going to read is about one of the many cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. You guys have to guess which one is which. For Maya's trivia, I'm going to make it theme specific because I think Kyle will cover this a little bit later. But she comes from a very creative family, specifically not when it comes to comedy, but actually when it comes to music. So all the facts that I have about her are about music.
That's good.
Before we get into those facts, her mom and dad were both professional musicians. Her dad was a composer and her mom was a singer-songwriter. And when I looked up her mom, you know what song she sang?
It was like a classic Motown, right?
Loving you is easy because you're beautiful. You remember that song?
Hit the high note.
I was blown away when I saw that. But anyway, raised in a very musical family. We will touch on that later. Let's get to the Maya Rudolph facts here. Fact number 1, at the suggestion of her high school music teacher, she auditioned for a Coca-Cola commercial and landed a role in the commercial singing the Always Coca-Cola tagline. Fact number 2, she was once in a band that was actually so successful that it was the opening act for bands like Garbage, Alanis Morissette, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Fact number 3, she is in a Prince cover band that has performed at Carnegie Hall and Bonnaroo.
I know this one to be factual. It's Iggy Azalea, who was featured in Furious 7 as Race Girl. That's fact number 1.
Wait, Iggy Azalea's in Fast and the Furious?
Furious 7. So
I might have to start watching these movies I'm mocking.
I think 1 is the lie too, and I think that's Eva Mendes.
Give me 1. Going with 1, 2.
I'm gonna go with number 2. And that's Sung Kang, who plays Han. He's actually the singer of a band that opened up for Red Hot Chili Peppers and Garbage and all that other stuff.
I buy it. I'm in.
Yeah, I think the first one's the lie, but I think I've only maybe seen one Fast and Furious movie, so I have no facts to back that up with.
Oh, you've seen more than enough to fully grasp. 1, it's about family. That's really important. You got to know that.
Yep.
And then that's about it. So you pretty much got the gist of the Fast and Furious movies. But I appreciate you guys guessing. So I will start with the one that no one chose. She is in a Prince cover band that is actually very successful. It's known as Princess, clever enough, and was given the thumbs up of approval by Prince himself when he was still alive, which is about as high a praise as you can get in a cover band, is to get the recognition from the actual artists themselves. Fact number 2 is in fact true. Right after college, instead of getting into acting, she sang and played piano for her band called The Rentals, and they toured. They were with those Alanis Morissette, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Garbage. I mean, those are 3 major bands from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An argument can be made that, Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of the greatest bands of the last 20, 30 years. So that's really impressive on her end. And fact number 1, you guys guessed it, was in fact not true. At the suggestion of his high school music teacher, he auditioned for a Coca-Cola commercial, landed the role. That would be Tyrese Gibson. People forget that he used to be an average R&B singer before he became an average actor.
Consistency.
Yes. Good-looking man, though. Yes, he's a handsome dude, and that gets you far.
Cool. Thanks, James. Let's take a little bit of a look at her snapshot and box office history. Case, what do we got?
She's just not a huge box office draw, which makes sense, right? Because her fan base is coming from things like SNL, digital shorts, streaming movies, streaming shows. I personally think she's super talented, which we'll see as we're talking about her tonight. But comparing to others who have had, real obvious box office, successes and failures tied to them, it's just tough to compare her to those folks. I was surprised at how low her IMDb star meter has been as of late and how it's been trending because of her high profile on Saturday Night Live of VP Harris. I really thought that she was going to rank really high on our list, but out of the 28, she actually ranks 18 at the time of recording. And then the other thing I was surprised about was that she's ranked really low on both fan and critic rankings. She ranks 24th out of 28 on both of our lists, which again I thought was crazy because I figured she would be somebody that fans would probably gravitate towards her projects, because I do think they're geared towards audiences that like her and her brand of entertainment. And then I figured critics would rank her 24th out of our 28. So she has had some good box office performances, because of some high profit movies like Big Hero 6, Angry Birds, Shrek 3, and then she's kind of an auxiliary character in the Sandler films. So you're gonna be in some movies that make some money, but a main star in a non-animated film, really Bridesmaids is probably her most notable film, which, as we've talked about on other podcasts, is a pretty damn cool film to be connected with.
I mean, it sounds like most of the big money making projects she's in are voice work, based on what you just told us. Okay. Cool. Yep. Thanks, Case. All right. Well, before we start talking about specific coverage, so before we talk about first feature film, dig into a little bit more of what James didn't cover in his trivia segment. So first off, she went to high school with some interesting people / royalty. She went to high school with Gwyneth Paltrow and Jack Black. No big deal.
Ever heard of them?
So she went to high school with them. She grew up singing, doing local theater, right? You have two parents who both performers. I mean, that's going to happen. She went to UC Santa Cruz, got her bachelor's in photography, or at least went to get her bachelor's in photography. I'm not entirely sure she ever finished. Maybe she did. If you all have that information, please do share it. Her first band that she started was called Super Sauce. Been some really creative names for bands the last couple episodes with what people have done.
That's what made the Parks and Rec joke so good, is because it's absolutely true. All the bands that aren't famous have the funniest names, and they change constantly.
Yep, this is true. Very creative. And as James had mentioned, she did keyboard and backup vocals for the Reynolds for 4 years, between 94 and 98. And there's a ton of stuff on YouTube. You can check it out. The lead singer is the bassist for Weezer, so a pretty cool little group. After that, she joined the Groundlings Improv Troupe, which is a really famous improv group, and other alumni consist of people like Will Forte, Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Wendy McClement-Covey. These are all people that she works with at some point in her career. These are the relationships that kind of took her career to the next level in the late 90s. But her first role ever was in an episode of Chicago Hope, played a nurse, and then she was in the movie Gattaca, also played a nurse. So really staying in one particular lane. They're like, you were a good nurse. Come back and be a nurse on Gattaca. And then it's not until 97 when she's in As Good as It Gets as a policewoman.
Oh, not as a nurse?
No, not as a nurse. She breaks out of that. She does return to it later.
Yeah, there was a funny little anecdote that I stumbled across. Was she was on Chicago Hope for a year, and she was at a red carpet event with her husband. It was like her first red carpet event, so she was a little overwhelmed. And she was there, and she saw a couple actors she knew, a couple actors she didn't know, and so she was gravitating towards the one she did know. And she saw George Clooney. She went up to him, gave him a hug, started talking to him, started talking about their time on ER together, and he informed her that she wasn't on ER. And she goes, "That's correct. Yeah, I just hugged an actor I don't know. I pretended we worked together. We did it, and it wasn't until after the fact that I realized that I made that all up."
I hope they can laugh about that today. That's
right.
all.
Oh, that's funny shit.
Good for her. I mean, that fits in with her personality. She's pretty brave and doesn't have a lot of shame. I'm sure she was more than willing to do that. 99, she was in I think she was in the pilot of the show Undressed that used to be on MTV back in the day. And so one episode of that, and then she was in a movie called Duets. She played a karaoke hostess, but she also was the music supervisor for that movie.
Let's talk about how insane the karaoke craze was, and the fact they made a movie about it. If you haven't seen it, or you don't remember it, do yourself a favor and YouTube the trailer to this, and you will laugh as hard at that trailer as you have at a lot of things in the last few months.
Dude, Gwyneth Paltrow's song from that movie ended up charting in the billboards.
Oh, you're talking about Cruisin'?
Yeah. Dude,
is that the movie that's from?
Very successful, yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
And while we're at it, I mean, how unfair is it that Huey Lewis is in a karaoke contest?
And a shockingly decent actor.
Yeah.
On the back half of 2000, she returns toward nurse roots and she stars in an episode of City of Angels alongside Viola Davis, who played another one of the nurses on that show, which I thought was pretty interesting. And 2000 is also the year that she started her run on SNL, which she was a full-time cast member until 2007, and then has done a number of guest spots over the 12 years since then. So we will cover that at the back end. We'll talk about some of her most famous SNL characters. So if you're here to listen to that, just chill for a little bit. Bear with us through the next through the filmography portion, and we'll eventually get back to the SNL stuff. And then also 01, she starts a relationship with PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, and they're still together. They have 4 kids at this point, and it's kind of fun to see her career because every time she's pregnant, she's playing a pregnant character in a movie and just not hide it whatsoever. So good for her for finding characters that allow her to be pregnant and still have good work. It just seems like an odd couple when you think about like PTA as the director. And
Opposites attract, dude.
I guess.
She's the one who probably gets him out of his little fucking corner.
That's true. She's the comedic side of that relationship. 2001, she's in an episode of TV Funhouse, which was a big show back in the day, but she plays Oprah in that, and you see some of her Oprah impressions later with SNL as well. And she has a minor role in 50 First Dates as a character named Stacy. And also in 04 is when she makes Entertainment Weekly's list of funniest people in America. She's number 20. I guess 4 years into her SNL run, she gets some notoriety for her humor and comedy.
Sweet. I'm just realizing that she's been one of the funniest women and people in America for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
She's good at what she does. Before we hit first feature film, a movie she's in that she's got a smaller role, but I think a movie that a lot of us enjoy is A Prairie Home Companion. She plays Molly.
I rewatched this movie the other day. I love it, and I know that you like it, Kyle. I could see why people don't like it, but the music is awesome. It's got a star-studded cast. And I also love Robert Altman. He's one of my favorite directors, and this was his last movie, so it holds a special place in my heart. And she's very pregnant in the movie, as you mentioned earlier, Kyle.
Yeah,
she is.
And there's a scene where you see her bare belly, so she goes all out. For this being one of her first movies, I think that would be a really fun movie to be a part of, just with that cast. Because you're like, you get the comedy aspect, you get like the John C. Reillys and people like that, but you also get like Meryl Streep and Woody Harrelson. I mean, some of the best actors of that time, you know. So that'd be a really cool thing to be a part of. Lily Tomlin, yeah. Yep.
My favorite part of her in that movie is when she causes the 2 singers, Lily Tomlin and Meryl Streep, to completely fuck with the Foley guy, the guy that makes all the sound effects. You know, like the people walking down the hall. So they keep telling his stories, and he has to keep up with them. And they'll say something that's completely impossible for him to make a sound of, and they'll just smile at him.
My favorite part of hers is when she can't get GK out of the room, and so she fakes that she's going into labor. And she's like, I'm kidding. They need you on the stage. Let's go. So I was like, all right, good for you. And all of that leads up to her first feature film, and that's Idiocracy, 2006. And Rigby's got it.
I won't go too into the review just because it's a cult classic. It wasn't very popular when it came out in 2006, but since its release, I think it's really gained popularity. Basically, the plot of the movie is a U.S. Army librarian named Joe Bowers, played by Luke Wilson. He's selected for a hibernation experiment by the U.S. Army where they want to see if humans can hibernate basically for an extended period of time. They pick him because he's the most average individual in the U.S. Army. He's got the most average like grades, most average like health scores, all that stuff. So he's the ideal candidate. And he also doesn't have a family, so they want to make it, because it's kind of a hush-hush thing, so they want to make it, they want to choose somebody who isn't really that special to do this. Where Maya Rudolph comes in is because it's the Army, they are lacking a suitable female for the role, because they want to do both a male and female to see if it works on both genders. Maya Rudolph, who plays a prostitute in the movie named Rita, she is selected because of her private sector experience, as the Army leader describes. He bribes her pimp into getting her into this role. It turns out that the officer who selected Rita and Joe is arrested for his own prostitution ring under the guidance of the pimp whose name is Upgrade. Spelled in a way that you would not assume. Basically, because the experiment was so controversial, only a few people know about it. And so when the officer was arrested, the experiment was forgotten about. over a span of 500 years, Rita and Joe are forgotten about in these little tombs that they're put in by the army. And when there's an earthquake in 500 years later in the future because of building up of garbage in the future, I don't even know what's the word for it. It's like the great garbage earthquake of 2050. Yeah, I can't remember. But they wake up and it's 500 years in the future. They don't know that, obviously, but they realize that the world has gotten incredibly stupid and that they are the smartest people alive. A lot happens in the movie that's absolutely hilarious. It's an incredibly timely movie for today's times because basically the movie sort of projects a world in which, people watch too much TV. There's extreme, corporations take over, and we basically all just get dumber as the years go on. Like I said, it's a cult classic. The budget was $4 million and it only made about $500,000. And there's actually an interesting backstory about the studio that made it, Fox. I guess they were not happy with the movie, and I think they either dropped their distribution of it altogether, or they just didn't promote it when it came out. If my recollection serves me correctly, I think that's what the directors had a problem with, is that the studio that distributed the movie basically just sort of forgot about it. I would say Maya Rudolph, for what they needed with this character to be thrown into this world where she all of a sudden is the smartest person in the world, I think that is a hilarious it's a hilarious juxtaposition.
Dude, she's immediately hustling some guy, telling him, "Yeah, you keep paying me by the hour. We'll hook up tomorrow." You're like, oh man.
She realizes that these people are so dumb that she can basically make money as a prostitute without actually having sex. So it's a brilliant business plan on her end. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on HBO Max right now.
Was this Mike Judge?
It sure was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love Mike Judge. He's got such a good touch on like how to make something that's funny that looks like it's lowbrow humor, but it's actually incredibly like nuanced and clever.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of timely with Trump now being out of the White House. But I read a quote that Mike Judge said during the 2016 election. He said that when asked about predicting the future, he said, Mike Judge said, "I'm no prophet, but I was off by 490 years."
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That is timely.
As time has passed. But yeah, great movie. Mm-hmm. And a good role for Maya Rudolph in her first feature film.
Well, between 2007 2008, she's in a couple projects. She's in Shrek the Third, as Craig had mentioned, in terms of one of the bigger box office draws that she's been in.
Shrek the Third is one of our highest ranking opening weekends. It opened at 122 million.
That's stupid.
Did any of you guys watch that movie?
No.
It sucks, man. The first two are so good. The third one is terrible.
Her Rapunzel character have anything to do with how bad it was, or is it just kind of irrelevant in the larger scheme?
Some of these characters are characters that, are loved. Shrek and Donkey these guys put wings on their mansions because of these characters, and they're still not enjoyable. It's just poorly written. It's beautiful, but it's just not funny. The story is not entertaining. It's just not an enjoyable watch.
Understood. It's a cash grab. That's usually what happens. And that'll take us to our Munson's Choice. So if you're a first-time listener, the way this works, we give our guest Munson the opportunity to review a movie outside of the normal 5 categories. And in this case, Lauren chose 2009's Away We Go. So tell us about it, Lauren.
All right, Away We Go. This is an indie film. It was directed by Sam Mendes. And the movie starts off with 2 main characters, Bert and Verona, who are played by John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph. And they find out that they are expecting a baby, and the story sort of takes off from there. It plays out pretty episodically. They start with a visit to Bert's parents, who are played by Catherine O'Hara and Jeff Daniels. And they're kind of trying to decide, they were planning to raise the baby near its only living grandparents, but then Bert's parents, who are a little quirky, as you can guess by Catherine O'Hara and Jeff Daniels, his parents announced they're moving to Antwerp, and so they're not going to be around. And so Bert and Verona are deciding, what do we do now? And where do we live? And who do we want to raise our baby by? And what kind of life do we want to have? From there, they take a series of visits to friends and coworkers and family. And so after seeing his parents, they make a visit to an old coworker played by Allison Janney, who is as entertaining as you would imagine.
Yeah.
Her husband is played by Jim Gaffigan, who also provides some very dry humor.
He's good at that in his movie roles for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They make a visit to Verona's sister. They make a visit to an old family friend played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who is this very crunchy, hippie, Earth Mother type character. I personally think she's probably gives us some of the most comedic parts of this movie, in my opinion. They make a visit to some old friends played by Chris Messina, Melanie Linsky. There's a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah, it's a huge cast.
Yeah. They make a visit to Bert's brother, who's played by Paul Schneider. And something to note in this scene that I actually liked was that you actually get to see some of Maya Rudolph's singing in a scene with Bert's niece. She's kind of singing in the background, but you definitely get to hear her singing her to sleep at night. And then, there's kind of a predictable but sweet ending. And I am somebody that has no qualms about spoiling a 12-year-old movie, but they end up in Verona's childhood home. It's certainly something it's a drama. It's got some comedic parts. And again, I'm a big Allison Janney fan. I know you guys have covered her here on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Love her.
She's great.
Love Allison Janney. Love her in drama roles. Loved her on The West Wing. Love her in her comedy roles. Again, I think Maggie Gyllenhaal brought the comedic heat here. There's a scene with a stroller that is particularly funny.
It's pretty good.
I think you see Maya Rudolph in a very pensive, reflective role here, but she's still, I think you get that signature dry humor from her. That's something I really like about her, something that really resonates with me. But I will say what really drew me to this movie and kind of why I wanted to talk about it was that I think this movie is about what I consider to be the biggest secret to adulthood. And it's that nobody knows what the hell they're doing. And part of that reason is that there is no one right way to do life. And throughout this movie, you see Bert and Verona talking to all of their family and friends and coworkers, and they're trying to figure out where should we live and who should we raise our child by and how the hell are we supposed to do this? And Verona even says to Bert, at one point, like, Bert, are we fuck ups? Like, can we do this? And I think they're just trying to figure out how do we do this? And I think that's something that anybody can relate to. And so there's kind of a cool message there. Something else that I thought was kind of funny in my research was there was one critic, I think when you are reading reviews of a 12-year-old movie, one critic referred to Maya Rudolph as a virtually unknown SNL alum.
Excuse me?
Yeah, reading it in 2021, just that did not hold up well.
Correct.
It's like there's Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Will Ferrell, and then this chick. I don't know who she is.
Yeah, it was just, I read that and I kind of had to go back and read it again and make sure I was understanding the context of what they were saying. And it's a good film. There's not much else to say about it.
How is she dramatically?
Again, she was very reflective. Like she really played that well. I think you still see that dry humor. I'm thinking of a scene in particular with Catherine O'Hara and Jeff Daniels, because they were just very quirky and over the top, very excited to, see the ultrasound pictures, and they're just, very outlandish. And she was just kind of quietly taking it all in and just sort of indulging them. At one point, Catherine O'Hara's character asks her, do you think the baby will be black? And she's like, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll keep it out in the sun for a few days just to be sure. And so you see those kind of moments where she's just kind of taking it all in stride. But I do think she has the chops as a dramatic actor as well. She's
mentioned many times before that because she lost her mother at such a young age and was, raised by a single parent, that being a parent in itself has been difficult for her because she doesn't really know what a motherly figure is supposed to act like. And, 4 kids all close in age is a lot for anyone to handle. And so she left SNL because she was raising a family. And I could see that a lot of the jokes that she pulls from being a mother and, raising young children and being someone who's mixed as well and raising a child, you can see those jokes in this movie as well as other roles that she's had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her character in this movie, her parents have passed away in a car accident. And when she was a young adult, so not a child, but at a young age. And so I think you see that. And I think you see her real life experience played out in the character. And I think you see the two writers of the film as well. You see some of the parallels of their life played out in Bert and Verona as well, where they were like, we're a young couple and we're trying to figure out real life too. Again, with that art imitates life, and it just sort of brought their real life experience into this film as well.
And you got to respect the hustle for her. Like some actresses, when they're pregnant, might be like, I got to take some time off. I think she seeks out roles that she can be pregnant in and keep working and keep doing her thing. In this case, I mean, good for her doing some dramatic work, because at this point she'd really only done comedies, especially comedic characters up until this point. So
yeah, the only reason she left SNL is because how demanding that schedule is. So she kept doing movies. She's just like, I couldn't be, putting in 12-hour days to meet a Saturday night deadline while raising 4 kids. It's just impossible.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate that. Over the next 3 years, she's pretty busy. First and foremost, she's in one of the podcast favorites. She plays Casey in MacGruber. Wow.
I watched this with wifey for the first time this past week. It is very stupid, but hilarious.
I can't believe you hadn't seen it earlier, James. I'm surprised by that.
It was one of those movies that unfortunately fell in my guidelines of everyone has poorly reviewed this movie online, so I'll just never see it. And the only reason I knew of it is my fraternity brothers love it and quote it all the time, but I never got around to watching it. And then I finally watched it for this podcast, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Fuck you, dude. The movie is great. She has such a minimal role in it, but I mean, it is what it is.
Both of the scenes that I remember from her are when you first see her character, it's them getting married, her and MacGruber getting married, and she explodes.
Yep.
Hilariously graphic and random and fit the ridiculousness of the movie. And then the next time you see her is when he's having sex with her ghost in the graveyard. Dude, it's so absurd and drawn out that it's so funny. Because it's like, it's not just like a minute. It's like a good 3-minute sex scene, and it's graphic and it's just over the top.
I think this movie holds a special place in Warren, Kyle, and I's heart, because I think we all watched it together in 2011 would that have been when it a year after it came out.
I mean, I saw it in theaters, and I think I don't know if I had introduced it.
I think you did.
To you guys.
I think you did, yeah.
Oh no. Yeah.
Just tell me what you want me to fuck.
In MacGruber, the skit, Maya Rudolph was his female assistant when it first aired on Saturday Night Live.
Oh.
So I'm sure that's how she ended up getting married to him in the actual movie.
That makes sense, being an SNL product.
Kristen Wiig was in a bunch of them. And they definitely brought over the SNL crowd.
And those three were in that sketch group together before they were on SNL, so they probably worked on those characters.
That goes to 2011 and probably her biggest role, the role that she gets associated with the most, because she says when she even goes to Starbucks, people associate her as a woman who took a shit in a wedding dress in the middle of the street, as her character in Lillian in Bridesmaids.
Really relatable scenario.
I love Bridesmaids too. We've talked about Bridesmaids with O'Dowd and Ast, and it's an awesome movie, and Maya Rudolph's character is hilarious. Her and Kristen Wiig have great chemistry. Mm-hmm. They're best friends, but they're opposite in a way, because Lillian, who's played by Maya Rudolph, she seems to have her life figured out, and Kristen Wiig obviously doesn't. The way that they bounce off each other and the scenes that they have of just those two together are great. It's a phenomenal movie, and it still holds up today. It's absolutely hilarious.
It's fun seeing her on that side of the relationship.
Like the straight woman, yeah.
Not the quirky one. She is the dramatic role to Kristen Wiig's, zany, batshit crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not an area where this movie fails.
That was part of the casting of Maya Rudolph. Was she even said herself, she's like, I came in late in the process, and they pretty much just had me do like a chemistry read with Kristen Wiig, because they just wanted her character to have chemistry, clearly be friends, because they weren't going to give a lot of exposition on how long they've been friends, where their relationship is from. Obviously, since they've been friends and worked together for so long, she's like, I came in and like Paul Feige was immediately like, yep, that's yours. Yep. That's your role.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can judge accordingly, but we can call 2011, 2012 her O'Dowd era, because following Bridesmaids. She was in Friends with Kids, played Leslie, and she was married to Chris O'Dowd in the movie. So back to back with our boy in that time period. She's in a recurring TV show called Up All Night, and then she's does a little crossover with Sam Rockwell in The Way, Way Back. And Janny's in that too, isn't she?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's just Janny and O'Dowd through this little 5-year stretch here, back to back.
I don't hate it.
The movie's great. Her role is very grounding in the movie. But, we talked about it for Rockwell, where he's like that backwoods comedic relief. And she's kind of like his girlfriend / serious manager of the water park that is kind of the main scene for the movie.
I don't hate that combination, that Rockwell, Janny, Maya Rudolph.
Oh, hell no.
I'll take it any day.
No,
that's
great.
That's a hell of a group that aren't just like the main people. Like, they're not what you would consider just like stars. They're all very big supporting, and they all mesh really, really well together. Steve Carell's probably the biggest name draw in this movie.
Agreed. Strong film. We can't recommend it enough after last week, and once again, we'll do it here. And then finally, she's in another pretty decent animated film called Turbo. She plays Byrne. And that takes us to largest audience gap, and that is Grown Ups 2. And this is my review, unfortunately.
Oh, I've been waiting all week for this, Kyle.
Don't let us down, man.
So in terms of audience gap, on IMDb, there's a 54-19 breakdown, so audience to critics, then 53-8 on Rotten Tomatoes. So an 8 from the critics, 53 from the audiences.
That's got to be the biggest gap we've seen for an audience gap.
It's one of them. I think we've hit like 60.
I think we did hit like a 60, 70 in the past week or two.
But this is up there. If this is going to be in the pantheon of audience gaps for sure. This movie came out 3 years after the original. It's the same director, so Dennis Dugan, who's done most of Sandler's Happy Madison projects. So you're going to get that same voice, same approach. Just so you guys, for the folks on here who haven't seen it, Rigby and James, the first opening scene of the movie, there is a reindeer running amok in their house, peeing on everything. What that has to do with anything, you'll find out later. I guess it comes back around, but it's just the dumbest way to start a movie in history.
Yep.
So my first beef with this movie, number one, is, and I'll give them credit in this one, the whole Sandler-Hayek combo as a couple is so unbelievable in real life that they at least made a meta joke about it in Grown Ups 2 when he said he's talking to his kids and says it only makes sense in a Hollywood movie. So I'm giving them credit for that because I'm sure they got a lot of feedback after the first one. But basic gist is these 5 adult friends and their 3 wives, including Maya Rudolph, living lives in the suburbs. And they end up going to a local like watering hole, swimming spot, and a bunch of frat guys end up like telling them this is their turf, yada, 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 and enter another one of David Spade's random kids, Alex Ludwig, and he plays the younger, often like rough and tumble version of David Spade. And basically he hates David Spade, and because he hates David Spade's character, then he ends up like destroying these frat guys' frat house. They think it's these old people that they may jump into the lake naked. Everything transpires. They throw a big 80s party at their house, and the frat guys show up, and there's literally a massive Royal Rumble, including adults, children, everyone fighting each other on this Sandler's lawn. And that's how the movie crescendos with the reindeer coming back into the fold and attacking a stuffed animal to save the day. That's the movie.
Sounds awesome.
Did it win any awards?
Well, it got 9 nominations at the Razzies, and it set a record at the time because it went over. It went 0 for 9. And up until 2017 for Transformers The Last Night, no movie had been nominated as many times at the Razzies and not won one. There's your award footprint for Grown Ups 2.
It sounds like this was just another example of like from 2010 to 2015. I mean, Sandler just, I don't know what Happy Madison universe was thinking, because they had some big time bomberoos, and this sounds like it was one of them.
It's still happening, man. It's still happening with his Netflix deal.
It's all money, man.
True, yeah. And for you, Uncut Gems, right, Warren?
Yeah. If Happy Madison did that one, it'd be better.
I saw a critic describe this movie. I just read this. It says, somehow the word sequel doesn't quite fit this. It would be like if you were describing 3 months of agonizing spinal surgery as the sequel to falling off of a cliff.
That seems about right. It's almost like Happy Madison is recycling characters. So Warren will probably agree with me. Jonathan Loughran's character, he basically plays the same character in The Waterboy. And John Lovitz's character as the creep is the same one in Little Nicky.
Yep.
I don't know if it's part of the same universe or they're just being lazy.
It's a bit of both, but it's also like the same reason why characters, they all have the same like last name. There's always whatever Chonk Boy's name in this, Kevin
James.
Yeah, Kevin James. Like whatever his last name is in this that name is used like 10 times over in the Happy Madison universe.
Is it O'Doyle?
Yeah. No. It's like whatever it is. I don't fucking know.
Maya's character, I mean, there's not much to it. She doesn't have a ton of screen time. She's married to Chris Rock in the role. She mentioned at one point she asked the kid if a doo-doo grenade went off in their diaper, and that's how I felt watching the movie, that a doo-doo grenade went off on my eyeballs. And in my ears on this one. There's kind of a funny gag between her and her husband, and he remembers their 20th anniversary, but she doesn't, so he just holds it over her head the rest of the movie, but it's pretty limited. So that's Grown Ups 2.
It's on YouTube. Watch it for free.
Over the next 3 years, very busy. So she's in another animated film, The Nut Job. She plays Precious. She's in her husband's film, Inherent Vice, as Petunia in 2014. Couple TV show spots, Portlandia and Family Guy, and then she gets into some more voice work in Big Hero 6 as Cass.
It's a fun movie, but her role's really not all that big.
I enjoyed Big Hero 6. I think it points to a theme of some of the non-Pixar animated films that she goes with aren't actually half bad. There are some decent, like Turbo, Big Hero 6, there are some decent animated films. So good for her. So next couple of years, she's in Maggie's Plan and Sisters. So you see some more connections to Polar, Tina Fey. And then she's in Mr. Pig or Senior Pig, depending on where you find it, in 2016 alongside Danny Glover. Another indie drama similar to Away We Go. I watched this for the pod. I kept waiting for more from Maya because it is very much a concerned daughter for her dad who just wants to transport his prize pig across the country. And Danny Glover just kind of steals the show, unfortunately. She kind of gets overshadowed in that role. She tries the dramatic side again, but I don't think many people have heard of this or seen it, so I don't think it was entirely that successful. But that takes us to her role as Deborah in Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping, where she drops a hard R.
I do not remember her scene, so when I saw that she was in this movie, I do not remember that character.
I'm with you.
She's selling them a fridge, and she tells them she can...
Oh, that's right.
She's selling appliances, and she can put their music in all the appliances. And then one of the guy goes, yeah, my N, and she says it, but with that hard R, and everyone just kind of stops in the middle of it. They're like, that's her scene.
That's probably, again, like one of her comments on growing up being mixed and making white people uncomfortable when they forget that she is black and say that and they're like, what the hell? Oh, right. Okay.
Another good comedy that she's in. And then 2016, she's in her Prince cover band, Princess, play the Moon Tower Comedy Festival. And I know Case has a little bit of a story behind that.
I thought this was really cool. Like James had pointed out earlier, she was in a Prince-endorsed Prince cover band. Her and her partner were scheduled to perform, a year in advance at the Moon Tower Comedy Festival. And Prince, unfortunately, passed away just a few days before this festival went on, right? And so she was really uneasy about wanting to do it. She talked to the organizers, and they're like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't. We'll kind of take the temperature of the mood and see what people think. And then they came back to her, and they're like, hey, you know what? It actually sounds like a lot of people would appreciate this. And she wasn't unsure. And so she was talking to one of her friends, and they were like, Prince endorsed you. All right. He dug what you're doing. Go out and do this show. The Moon Tower Comedy Festival did is they moved their performance to the end to try to, in case people didn't want to stay, they wouldn't. And anybody that wanted to stay was going to be clearly a fan. They blew the roof off, man. They stole the whole festival at a comedy festival. a cover band was all people were talking about for a year.
That's awesome.
Look at the clip of her introducing Let's Go Crazy. It's really moving.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. Later that year, she got her own sketch show with Marty, Maya and Marty. Played a number of characters in that one.
It's one of those old school entertainment shows where they're doing skits and they're singing and they're dancing and they're doing all sorts of stuff. Kind of a throwback. I think it was really them wanted to do a project where they could work with a bunch of their friends.
There was a lot of SNL crossover there, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
That's the key. It was a little bit of a couple different generations of SNL coming together for a sketch show, bringing a lot of those heavyweights together. And then later that year, she's in a really uniquely animated film that's on Netflix called My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea. And if you Google that, you'll notice like extremely unique animation comparatively to what you're seeing across the board in her projects and other things today. But this is the extension of the Margot Martindale universe. She plays a character in this one. So I know I told you guys there's a Margot sighting. It's this particular project.
She's truly everywhere, man. She truly is.
The MMCU.
Exactly. Yeah, Lauren, if you haven't picked up, we love to talk about Margot Martindale on our show here. It's one of our favorite things to do.
And if you don't know who Margot Martindale is, Google it and you'll be like, oh, her. Okay.
And then you can become part of the Margot mob, as we refer to ourselves.
God. But she plays Verdi. It's a newspaper editor, pretty important to that story. And then over the next couple of years, she's in Angie Tribeca. She's in a couple episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine as a U.S. Marshal. She's in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and the movie Chips. And that takes us all the way to my favorite review of the night, and that is Emoji Movie. No offense to everyone else, but Warren's got this.
Yep.
And we're used to Warren eviscerating movies, but I don't know if we've ever tossed him up a softball like this before. So let's see what happens. And this is their lowest critic score.
Yeah, has anybody seen this?
Come on, no one's seen this.
I don't even use them, let alone watch a movie about them.
I have an 8-year-old niece and nephew, but somehow I have managed to avoid this one.
So this movie, like, usually when it comes to animated movies, it's like there's some deeper message and some meaning or anything like that. There isn't anything like that. They thought it was a really good idea. I mean, how many emojis do you have on your phone?
100, maybe?
Oh, yeah. And they decided to make an entire movie about this universe that exists where there's all these emojis and there's lineages of meh emojis and smiling emojis and poop emojis and all that stuff. And it's just like, how fucking lazy are you where you're like, oh, movie about emojis, like that sounds like a great idea. I mean, even in 2017 when this came out, emojis were like on the way out. Like, I mean, I know people still send emojis, but then it became like pretty much just GIFs and memojis and stuff like that. But the whole thing is just like, it has an interaction with the digital world, and then it's a little bit of real world happening concurrently. And there's no lesson for like the real world, the people, where it's like, oh, you're using your phone too much, or, you're being a bit creepy with your texting or anything like that. Absolutely not. It basically says everybody's on their phones. That's fine. Why don't you stay on your phones? If your phone's not working, go get it fixed immediately. Otherwise, you'll be a social pariah. And it's okay to stalk a girl that you have a crush with and send her texts and, have a password in your phone that's her name. And, if you don't feel like you can talk to them in person, you can send them a text all you want. Like, that's exactly what happens in this movie.
Oh, boy.
That's rather unsettling.
Yeah, that's a dicey topic to cover with children.
Exactly. But just to keep going. So the movie, it just doesn't make any sense. It's about an emoji who like doesn't want to be a meh emoji. And so he's got this ability to do all these other, smiles and faces and stuff like that. And he's a part of this app that's a made up app, but the app is kind of controlled by Maya Rudolph's character, the smiley emoji. She's just a smile, like the super smiley face. but she's an absolute bitch, but she's got to maintain a smile the entire time.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it sounds like this could have been a movie and it just sucked.
This movie, no joke, like there wasn't one laughable moment. There wasn't anything where I was like, this is cool. All it did was advertise every app known to man: Instagram, Facebook, Spotify. Like, there was no creativity in it. And it was like, hey, Wreck-It Ralph did a really good job of this, like, inside technology thing and moving around. Like, let's do that, but a phone. It's like, well, that sounds fucking boring. And it really is just an absolute god-awful movie. Like, this might be the worst movie that I've had to watch doing this podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, there is no redeeming quality to it. But listen, I found some trivia. January 2018, Saudi Arabia lifts a 35-year ban on movie theaters, and this was the first movie shown publicly in that country.
Yikes!
Why do you think we're in war in the Middle East? Because they just watched this fucking movie. This was the first feature-length animated movie nominated for Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay.
Oh, wow.
It was also the first animated movie nominated for Razzie Worst Screenwriting since The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Trailblazer.
This one, I think it won... It won 3 out of 5 Razzies that year.
Oh, it almost swept the field.
Yeah.
Get your shit together, grown-ups, too. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
no joke. I wouldn't recommend it at all to anybody. And it made 200 mil. 50 million budget, made over 200 mil.
A bunch of parents thought it'd be good for their kids, I guess.
Idiocracy is happening.
Correct. Yeah,
That's a thing.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
Just a terrible movie. So
Sorry, Warren.
Well, let's talk about a funny cartoon then.
Yeah. So right after that, she starts her stint on Big Mouth as Diana Birch and Connie the Hormone Mistress.
fucking Connie.
The Hormone Monsters are probably the 2 funniest ideas that they had for the show. The general premise of this show is Nick Kroll is essentially describing his life in late middle school, early high school, where he was like the last guy to hit puberty. And so it's all about him and all of his friends going through puberty. And when they show a guy going through puberty, there's a hormone monster that's like an imaginary friend that only he can see. And it's voiced by Nick Kroll. And then when a girl is going through puberty, there's a hormone monstress voiced by Maya Rudolph that only the girls can see. And Maya Rudolph is absolutely hilarious in this role.
Yeah.
Not only is it like a clever way to show kids going through puberty, but her character is just absolutely hysterical. I think part of it is because, of course, I don't know what a girl that age going through puberty feels like, but I do know what a guy that age does. And I always feel like the commentary that Nick Kroll has on that is pretty spot on about how awful that experience is. So watching the girl's perspective and how Maya Rudolph kind of navigates that is always so funny.
Well, take a bubble bath.
Yeah, Maya puts on this like cartoonishly kind of country accent, and every word she says is so funny. But she always tries to push the girls into taking bubble baths, and the way she says it is like, "Let's go take a bubble bath, my little ravioli."
Apparently, you guys aren't the only ones who thought she was great in this, because this won her first Emmy for Outstanding Character Voiceover Performance. So she won a Primetime Emmy. Big deal.
The humor is like, it deserves it. The humor is so spot on from the Hormone Monsters, because they're the characters that kind of break the fourth wall the most.
You could tell she had a lot of fun with that role.
Oh,
that's for
absolutely.
sure. Tons and tons of fun.
And they're 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Like, go watch them. You could fly through a season in no time.
It's on Netflix, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Well written and deserves the awards it gets.
2018, she does a show called Forever with Fred Armisen, who she's worked with a few times over the years, especially SNL side. She plays a character named June. Definitely more of a dramatic show that's available. I think it's available on Prime right now. But as we talked about, as Lauren mentioned earlier with Away We Go, you see some of the dry humor, but most of that show is driven by her dramatic work. And I think based on the interviews I've seen, this is the type of stuff she would want people to see now, that she can showcase some of her dramatic chops. But then she goes right back to the comedic side in the Happy Time Murders, which we've talked about before in the podcast. in that we don't necessarily love this movie, but she plays Bubbles, who is Phil's assistant in that one. We won't spend any time on that. We'll go back to her role as a judge on The Good Place, which she's been on for 3 years now, and that's gotten her 3 Primetime Emmy nominations for that role.
People love it.
It's very cleverly written, and it's got the trifecta of being a successful show where it's well written, well acted, and it's cut together really nice. So there's no lulls. It's just good cast. It's funny and clever, and it's an enjoyable watch. Maya Rudolph's kind of like a side character. So if I had to guess for Emmy nominations, it was probably like guest appearance or something like that.
And then to round it out before our next review, she's in the Lego Movie 2, the second part. She plays the mom character alongside 2 other Munsons we've covered, Chris Pratt and Alison Brie. And then she plays a motivational voice, very brief, in Booksmart in 2019 as well. And that takes us to Wine Country, our largest critic app, and James has it.
Have any of you guys watched this movie?
I have.
Yeah.
My wife watched it, and she was like, yeah, you don't need to watch it. So I didn't.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. Because that's probably going to get to the heart of my review. So the critics gave it a 65, audience gave it a 30, which is a pretty big gap for a comedy. Usually comedies go the other way, where the critics are like, this is dumb, and audiences love it. So I was intrigued to watch this, and I will have to agree with your wife's assessment. So the plot here is 6 longtime friends, 6 women who are longtime friends, travel to the Napa Valley to celebrate one of the friends' 50th birthdays. The cast is amazing. It's pretty much every female star from SNL over the last 15 years. So it's Amy Poehler, Rachel Dratch, Anna Gasteyer, Maya Rudolph, of course, Tina Fey, and Jason Schwartzman's actually thrown in there as like a comedic side character. The movie itself was actually inspired by a real-life trip that these stars took together to celebrate 50th birthday, and it kind of has that feel to it because all the actors are clearly very close, and the characters are not that far off from who the actresses are in real life. Example being, Maya Rudolph's character has 4 kids, and in real life she has 4 kids, and her character explains why that's tough on her and why she needs this vacation and whatnot. Problem is, though, I think they were banking on a lot more improv and a lot more ad-libbing because the characters are so close to the actresses, and that just didn't take place. So a lot of the characters are kind of like half developed or like a little flat, where you just don't care as much as you could tell the story wants them to. In the end, it's a film that had a ton of potential, and it kind of holds on to that potential throughout the duration, but it never ever takes advantage of it. It's like everyone got in this room and was like, hey, this will be a good idea. Remember when we went on that trip and it was funny? And what if we did that? And then they expected some sort of like awesome comedic results, and it just never happened. I found myself bored throughout the majority of it. There's a couple solid one-liners that had me chuckling. But it was just a generally pretty boring movie. I would say 65 is a little high, 30 is a little low. I would shoot the middle and say we're going 50. It's a great cast, and you could tell they have chemistry, and the movie just kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah, the movie is like telling a friend about a dream.
Oh, you know what? That's pretty fair, actually, where at beginning you're like, wow, this will be fascinating. And then like a few minutes in, you're like, and it's not. I don't know why I thought it would be, but it's not.
This has nothing to do with me. Why do I give a shit? You know?
I'm ashamed to hear that it's not very good because, I mean, that cast, I find Rachel Dratch and obviously Maya Rudolph and Amy Poehler to be hilarious. So,
oh, absolutely. I think it was a victim of its own hype, where people saw this cast and saw who wrote it and were like, love these actresses, love them when they write comedies. This will be great. And it was just average. And when you're expecting like Bridesmaids 2, essentially, and you just get an average movie, that's why I think audience members were dunking on it and were like, this movie sucks. Yeah. It doesn't suck. It's just not good.
They're measuring it against their own expectations of others.
I absolutely think that you look at a cast like that and you're like, oh my God, I love all of those women. They're incredibly funny and talented, and put them all together. And this movie is it's going to feel like Bridesmaids 2. It's going to feel like that. It's going to give me that comedic
offering that I want and what I'm looking for. And so from the audience perspective, it did not do that. I just felt like they tried to get a little too serious at times. Like there was maybe too many serious plot lines. And maybe this just makes me sound shallow, but if I'm going to watch what I want to be a funny movie, I don't want to have to think about it too much. I don't want to have too many feelings about all of these characters. I want to laugh. And I was getting not enough laughs and too much where I had to emotionally invest in the lives of these characters. And so that was kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, I got my own problems. Like, I don't need your shit.
I saw it a couple years ago, and it was very forgetful on my end. So I didn't rewatch it because I was like, I don't think I'm going to learn anything new about Maya from this. And maybe not having because Tina Fey went on the actual trip with them. She couldn't make this because she was making her Broadway debut at the time during filming. So who knows if she's there, if it changes the dynamic and the humor at all. Maybe that's what they were missing. Their little rat pack. They were missing one of the big ones, right?
I mean, if it was her dream, right? She's not there to tell them about it.
The character I thought was the funniest was Paula Pell, who's a former writer for SNL. She plays like a elderly lesbian woman, and it wasn't like punchline drips. It was like little nuances of her character that I thought were funny. All the characters complain that she always talks to strangers, and then when they cut to her, she's like talking to the Uber driver, and she's like, I'm going to try that recipe, and I hope you figure out things with your wife. And I'm like, all right, that's pretty funny. Like, but I don't know who this woman is, and I'm sitting there waiting for Maya Rudolph, Rachel Dratch, Amy Poehler, who I think are some of the funniest women in the game, to like deliver the jokes, and it's kind of sad. It's like, oh, I got fired from my job. Oh, I don't know if I want to be a mother of 4 kids. Like, oh, I'm getting older. What does that mean? I'm like, all right, is this like a sad movie? Because then I got to kind of reinvest in this, because that's not where I was coming from.
That aligns well, because in the interview I saw that Maya did when she was promoting this, she said, y'all are going to learn about Paula Pell and how brilliant she is and how funny she is. So like that was the big thing they were trying to help people become aware about. Like, this woman can't just write, she can also act.
I think her character had probably was the most fleshed out and was the funniest on screen.
There we go. That's Wine Country. We're almost there. We're almost at the end of her filmography. So a couple projects for highest critic score. She's in the Angry Birds movie 2. Haven't seen, but I would assume that's probably more so in the Emoji movie range versus Lego movie 2. But, we'll let you do your own research on that one. And then Hubie Halloween alongside Tim Meadows, his wife. Remember when Sandler said if he doesn't win Best Actor, doesn't get nominated for Best Actor, he's going to make a complete pile of shit? Well, there you go. He had already made this, so he had it ready to roll. And that takes us to highest critic score, and that is The Willoughbys, in case hasn't.
The Willoughbys is a 2020 computer-generated animated comedy, which was made for and released on Netflix. It's directed by Corey Evans and Rob Lordermeyer, and is based on the book by the same name from Lois Lowry. Movie stars the voices of Maya Rudolph, Will Forte, Alicia Cara, Terry Crews, Martin or Marty Short, however you want to go with it, Jane Krakowski, Sean Cullen, and it is the narrator of the story is Ricky Gervais.
That's who that was.
As the cat.
As the cat, that voice sounds so familiar.
The film is about the Willoughbys, as the film name would indicate. The parents are unnurturing and neglectful, and the kind of parents you'd wonder why they even had a child, let alone 4. They just depressingly mistreat their children. I was really depressed and sad during this movie. And I was surprised to see that in some reviews, people talked about it being a comedy. But wanting to free themselves from their neglectful parents, the kids plot to send their parents off on this dangerous vacation where they'd get stranded and somehow think that would solve all their problems. While they're away, the parents hire a nanny, played by Maya Rudolph, to look after the kids. While they're on vacation, the parents get stranded and decide that not only are they out of money and can't return home, but they don't want to return home. They don't want to return back to their 4 children. They decide to try to sell the house. The kids and Maya Rudolph have some antics to try to get the sale of the house blocked. The parents had called and left Maya Rudolph's character a voicemail saying, hey, guess what? We're not coming home. You're on your own. We're selling the house. The oldest son, Tim, overhears that the parents had left Maya Rudolph's character this voicemail. he thinks that she's in cahoots with them. So he calls, the Department of Orphan Services to report Maya Rudolph's character as a bad nanny. Well, the orphan services come to the house, take the kids away. And then from there, the rest of the movie is basically Maya Rudolph's character trying to pull all the siblings back together into a family. The rating was 91 critic, 64 audience. I'm nowhere near any of that. And I'm really nervous that this movie went way over my head. I mean, I couldn't get into it. Like I said, I thought it to be a depressing story. The animation of it was kind of dark. It just seemed weird to me that this is a cartoon that a lot of people would be drawn to. Again, I'm probably the worst person for this because I'm not a cartoon guy, but I had a hard time getting into this movie. She was good, and she did. I mean, she delivered exactly what you thought she would. She's charismatic, and she has really good emotional range in terms of this character.
I love watching cartoons, and at first I was very intrigued by the animation style. It felt like kind of like a testament to like those old British cartoons. Like, what was it? It was like Gromit or something?
Wallace and Gromit.
There you go. Yeah,
The
looks
claymation.
Exactly. It looks like that a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
But when the movie started and the jokes were kind of going at first, I was like, oh, this is like a little kid's movie based on the humor I'm looking at. I'm like, all right, so I'm not really the target audience for it. So I kind of checked out a little bit. And then it gets real dark. And I'm like,
real dark.
All right, so this is not it started off a little kid's movie, but this is talking about like parents abandoning you and being unloved and being an orphan and what family means. I was like, you sharing this message with a little kid, either they're not going to get it at all or they're going to cry because it's neglectful parents. I think on first watch, I did not enjoy it. It might be one of those movies that on second watch, I enjoy it more because I know what to expect. And I'm not going to be caught off guard by like the depressing topics it's covering.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think I liked it because it's darker than your normal animated feature. I like the Willoughbys. I like the style to it. The characters were unique enough for me to say it was a good experience, but I like darker plot lines. So for me, because it was a Netflix film, I gave it a little bit more leeway than if it was something that was released in theaters and marketed to kids.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
There were a lot of critic types talking about it and enjoying it, similar to like Wolfwalkers this year. I think critics love that movie, and I don't know if people's kids are watching Wolfwalkers and finding that to be an awesome animated film, but critics love it, and I think Willoughby's kind of falls under the same boat.
Yeah, I think the timing of the release of this movie was so interesting, like that it came out in 2020 in a time where I don't necessarily think the world needed any more darkness and doom and gloom.
Fair point.
That's a good point.
Maybe I'm not as dark as Kyle is. So.
No.
Now, us curmudgeons on here, we see a movie that's happy-go-lucky, and we're like, that's not realistic. No one's happy. This is
Like, this is a movie just about shitty kids. Just embrace it and let's go.
People are laughing. That would never happen.
Maybe the parents are over the top, but look at that candy factory. It looks pretty cool, right? Huge role for Maya in the story itself, where I think she plays more of a supporting in a lot of other animated projects she does. So she's right at the forefront.
Her character's the heartwarming character. Hers is the one that makes it go, and absolutely the lead. And I think she's really kind of found a niche when it comes to voice work.
I agree. All right, so that wraps up film and TV work. As we mentioned on the front end, super diverse performer, and she's got a ton of shorts and then SNL. So from the short standpoint, there's a lot of them. So we're not going to cover all of them, but we're going to hit some of the highlights. So first and foremost, I'm slightly upset, James, when you're talking about her musical background, you didn't talk about the fact that she did 2 songs on Triumph the Insult Comic Dogs album in 2003. Very important.
So many actors have done that. Like, it's not very unique. How would I... I'm trying to find unique facts about her.
So 2003, she does that. She's in a musical called Prop 8 from 2008 that's got Allison Janney, Craig Robinson, and many others. That's really funny. That's a 3-minute video. I think Funny or Die. She does the Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right revisited video and documentary with like Seth Rogen and all of those guys. And that's an awesome homage to Beastie Boys and their impact they've had on the industry. Drunk History, a number of performers have done that. A couple musical appearances in like holiday specials and A Very Merry Christmas and Michael Bolton's Big Sexy Valentine's Day special. And she sings in those and shows off her range from that standpoint. That's Valentine's Day special. Valentine's Day is coming. If you have some free time, check it out just for Michael Sheen's character as a begrudged dance instructor with a cigarette and overweight.
Oh, it's hilarious.
So funny. She is in a crossover with Natasha Lyonne in Lyonne's directorial debut in Kabira. Charity Chastity is a short film. Also in what is probably my new favorite thing, and that is Tour de Pharmacy. She plays a small role in that with James Marsden, whose character is awesome as the interviewer in that particular story.
First time I saw this, I tuned in probably close about halfway through. And me and my girlfriend at the time were watching it. And we're like, oh, that's the guy from Saturday Night Live. And that's the guy from This Really Funny. And that's the guy from This Really Funny. So we're like, the next time that's on, we got to check it out. I will tell you that I was shocked with the amount of male frontal nudity that we were exposed to, because we didn't expect it after what we had seen at the end of that movie.
What's his face from Blue Mountain State with his little see-through pants?
Yes.
The mascot.
Chris Romano.
Yeah, really fun. You can check that out on HBO Max. She did a couple commercials for Ruby Tuesday, The Seventh Generation, and she was in the unauthorized Bash Brothers experience with the Lonely Island crew.
I heard a friend of mine describe this movie. He's like, hey, have you seen Sandberg's new special? And I go, how was it? And he goes, I felt like I was having a fever dream. And it's the most accurate description of a movie I've ever heard in my life.
What would happen if Maguire and Canseco did music while they were Yeah, and Maya's just in like one dance portion of it right outside a restaurant and leading a group of dancers. So it's pretty minor from that standpoint. But let's transition to SNL. We'll kind of round it out here. James, you go first. Talk about an SNL character or sketch that you think of when you think of Maya Rudolph.
Recency bias obviously wants to say Kamala Harris, but that is not what I think of when I think of Maya Rudolph. I think of her Donatella Versace impersonation. Mm-hmm. It is so cartoonish and yet not cartoonish enough when compared to the actual Donatella Versace. It's actually so good that she got to meet Donatella Versace because she was so impressed with it, and she gave her pointers on how to be more accurate as her. One of the examples she used is, you yell too much. If you're a diva, you're not supposed to yell. You're supposed to get your assistants to yell at people for you so you never have to raise your voice. And she also said that the security guards that she has around her are not attractive enough to be like the real security guards that Donatella Versace has. So if she could choose better men to surround herself with, that would be more accurate. I just think she nails it. She is such a chameleon when it comes to impersonations.
I remember she had the aforementioned Prince and the Prince cover band. She played Beyonce in a sketch with Fred Armisen as Prince.
Yeah.
And that was great. Prince was kind of like supposed to be the eccentric one, but in the sketch, he was kind of the calm one. And she, from what I remember, she was backup singer in the sketch. And so she kind of went all out on it. And so that was a pretty memorable one for me.
Yeah, she's done Beyonce a number of times. That's a big one for her.
I mean, I think she's fantastic as Kamala Harris. When I actually started watching clips in preparation for the podcast and just kind of going back through things again, I realized a clip that I have loved and something that has become part of my vernacular with some friends that I had totally forgotten was even an SNL joke was from Bronx Beat.
So good.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's the sweater weather. It's when they're like, it's sweater weather. It's sweater weather. It's sweater weather.
I agree. I didn't know it was from that either.
Right. And it was something that, it's an older, it's 2013-ish, somewhere around there. And so it was just something I had completely forgotten was even an SNL thing. And I was like, oh, I think anytime you have something like that just becomes part of your language like that, I think that is worth remembering. And I was like, that's actually legit funny because we still laugh about it, even though we've said it 1,000 times. And I feel like we should give credit to the person who made it funny.
Lauren, do you know the backstory on that skit?
I don't. Do you?
The skit is actually based on the longtime hairdresser at SNL. And she didn't even know that Amy Poehler, one of the writers, and Maya Rudolph had written that skit until they needed her to come to the rehearsal set to read the cue cards so that Amy Poehler could get the right accent.
Oh, that's funny.
Has anybody seen the Mom Jeans skit?
Of course, dude. That's one of those ones that went viral when like viral wasn't really a thing yet, was the mom jeans. I think that's another like what Lauren mentioned.
Yeah.
Something that kind of got into my vernacular and I didn't realize what it was from. And it's from that 30-second commercial that she does on SNL where it's the jeans that are very high up and aren't very flattering. And like the commercial's like, it makes your crotch a foot long. And it's her dancing. Yeah.
9-inch zipper.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And then the only other one of note for me is that she said that she was the first female on Saturday Night Live to ever play Oprah. Mm-hmm. In a long list of people that she impersonated, Oprah thanked her for not only being a woman, but also not wearing a fat suit and parroting her weight. Again, another person is endorsing Maya Rudolph's work about them. But it dawned on me that I think Maya Rudolph and Amy Poehler are criminally underrated as a duo in Saturday Night Live history. You look at their work, they were killers on that show.
That's kind of like what Lauren mentioned. She was offended by like one guy's review. It's like, this unknown star from SNL. It's like, I think she was probably the star of her kind of generation with Amy Poehler. You just stopped watching after Dan Aykroyd. That's an unfair comparison.
Well, I'll round us out. You named a lot of the ones I was going to. Bronx Beat's my number one, but she makes a brief appearance in Dick in a Box. We can't talk about Maya Rudolph's career without mentioning Dick in a Box, which is tops in the game in terms of SNL shorts. To add to it, her Kamala Harris impression got her a Primetime Emmy in 2019 as well.
Yep.
Oh, dude, she might as well just say that her price has gone up because now that Kamala's sworn in, they're going to have her on like every other week.
And they'll keep changing who's going to play Biden because we had Woody, Jim Carrey, and who knows who's next after Jim Carrey. Lots of Emmy nominations for the TV side and comedy, that's for sure. All right, Rigby, what do we got in terms of top performances?
We're going back to Thought for Your Penny this week.
Bingo.
Oh.
I think this is our third or fourth list from this site. So this is the
almost a nickel.
This is the top 10 Maya Rudolph movie and TV roles. And I'll give you a hint. Saturday Night Live is on here, but that's listed as like a whole show. So there's not a certain character. So
when did it come out?
July of this year.
Oh, okay. So it's recent. Bridesmaids, number one.
Bridesmaids is on here, but it's not number one. That is number 4.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Away we go.
Yeah.
Yep, that's on here.
Idiocracy?
Idiocracy is number 1 on this list.
Ooh.
Oh.
Was it written by President Camacho, this list?
It was written by Upgrade, actually.
How about Maggie's Plan?
Nope.
My entire high school is sinking?
Nope.
Friends with Kids.
Nope.
The Way Back.
Way Back is on here.
Not Wine Country, right?
Nope, Wine Country is not.
Good Place.
Clearly Emoji.
Nope.
The Good Place?
Good Place is on here, yep.
Michael Bolton's Big Sexy Valentine's Day special.
Nope. There's a role in here, Kyle, that you mentioned that you wish that she was in more of.
MacGruber?
That's on here. MacGruber is number 10. So
she's funny, man.
Give me Lego Movie 2.
Nope. I think this is the movie that you said that a certain character in the movie sort of takes over.
What was that?
Oh,
Mr. Pig.
Mr. Pig.
Oh, Mr. Pig.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We're missing number 3 and number 5. We got everything else though.
2 high ones. Is Forever on there?
Nope, it's not. I don't think you said these 2.
Zookeeper?
Yeah, I didn't mention Zookeeper.
Nope.
Just tell us what they are.
Number 5 is Grown Ups.
Oh. Yeah.
And number 3 is Big Hero 6.
Oh, well, Big Hero 6 makes sense.
Okay.
I can't believe it was Grown Ups because her role expands a lot more in Grown Ups too.
Grown Ups universe.
Yeah. Zookeeper 2, Zookeeper.
Guys, I was strategically trying to avoid talking about Zookeeper, and y'all fucked it up by trying to be funny.
This is a good list, but I think Saturday Night Live should obviously be number 1 just because that's her longest running and it's what she's most known for.
Yeah.
The fact that Idiocracy ranks above it is kind of dubious in my eyes, but it's not my list.
We are a film podcast.
Yep, true.
True.
This is true. This is true, Warren.
It's just a reminder.
It just depends on when you want to pull that out.
All right, let's talk about rating her career on the Munson Meter. If you're a first-time listener, the way this works, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100. Those factors could be anything from longevity as an actor, project choice, pop culture impact, their range, their awards footprint, any talents that they might have off the screen, their personal life, comedic chops, box office, and anything else that matters to us. So with that, we'll start with James.
Maya runs into an issue that a lot of comedic actors run into for me, which is this scale is just simply unfair to them. You're comparing apples and oranges because it is someone who has spent almost the entirety of their career being a comedic actor, and they're going up against someone who does comedy, drama, horror, the whole deal. And so naturally, my scores for comedic actors have been lower. That will bring her down in that you haven't seen a lot of range outside of comedy for her. But inside of comedy, you've seen a ton of range for her. When you're reading through her impressions, Michelle Obama, Donatella Versace, Kamala Harris, Beyonce, Oprah, like these people aren't very similar in the slightest, and she pulls all of them off. What I think brings her back up for me is her cultural impact, in that if someone says, oh, what's your favorite Maya Rudolph movie? Everyone's going to say Bridesmaids, because Bridesmaids is hysterical and that's what you immediately think. But if you were to ask other movies, it takes you a second to kind of think, what are those other Maya Rudolph movies? Yet she's still culturally relevant. And if someone asks you if you like her, you're like, oh yeah, I think she's hilarious. And it has a lot to do with the impact that she had on SNL. And so only judging her off her movies would feel like not a fair way to summarize her career. She finally got some Emmy love. I think Big Mouth is hilarious. Booksmart was great. I know she was only part of that, but she is putting herself in comedies that are a whole range of comedies. Some of them are absolutely awful, and some of them are classics. All that being said, I unfortunately can't go too high because there just isn't that range. I love that she's so musically talented, and she rarely shows it when she's doing comedy. It's either one or the other. And if she is doing comedy while, there's a singing aspect of it, it's a joke. Like, she doesn't actually try to do it. She tries to mock it. But to be so talented that you can open for some of the bands she's opened for and get some of the praise she's done is truly impressive. It's just unfortunate that she's kind of only known for the one thing, and we haven't really seen her outside of that. So I'm going to give her a 63.
Rigby.
Yeah, James, you hit it on the head. She's obviously very talented. And in terms of her range for her comedy, she gets her highest score for me on that because she can sing, she can dance, she can do all these skits. When she was back on SNL, and even when she makes her cameo appearances these days, it's almost like, we need you to play this, and she crushes it. She knocks it out of the park every time. Yeah. But like you said, James, I think the way her career's gone, I don't think she's ever going to get the leading role in a drama. I feel like I say this every week. I don't know if that's what she wants at this point in her life and her career. If that was offered to her, I would like to see what she could do with it, but I don't know if it's possible at this point. She seems like a pretty good person outside of acting. Obviously, she's married to Paul Thomas Anderson, he's a notable guy, but he's also a pretty private guy. So I kind of like how they keep their relationship pretty private. I think there's something to be said about that in Hollywood today, but I'm kind of going off track. So I'm going to give her 68.
All right. On my end, super talented singer, pretty good voice actor, picks for the most part good voice acting roles. A lot of her scores are pretty average for me when you look at comparing her to other actors that we've covered. Mm-hmm. Probably the most interesting story I saw about her and her husband is that they have Turner Classic Movies playing nonstop 24/7 in their kitchen because they want their 4 kids to absorb old-timey television and stuff like that. That has to make for a really weird and interesting.
I didn't know that. I would have given her a higher score. That's fantastic.
Being around PTM, it was probably his incepted idea at one point in time. But, she's a good performer. Nothing glaring from humanitarian work that she's done that's going to jump off the page there. But a lot of points for comedy and the intangibles that come with having a lot of flexibility and doing skits and shorts and things like that. So she's going to get one of my lower scores, and that's a 60. All right, Lauren, what do you got for us?
I agree with a lot of what has already been said, so I won't repeat it. I do think she's versatile. I think as much as everyone knows her as a comedic actress, and she's done a lot of comedy work, which comedies are not really a lot of Oscar contenders, so you don't see a lot of awards in her background so far. But I think she does do drama, and she does do depth, and she does have that. She does have the capability to do more versatile work. And I think with the music and the dance talent, that talent is there. And so I think this is going to sound real cliche, but I think as much as we've seen her do some really great work, I don't think we've seen her best work yet. And so when you have to base a score on her career right now so far. Not what she may yet do. I think she's got a huge cultural impact. I'm, back to sweater weather. You can't deny things like that have just ingrained in our lives. And so I think just pulling all of that together, I am going to go 67.
All right, Warren.
So with Maya, she is in some very reputable movies. Bridesmaids, obviously. Saturday Night Live, huge. Unfortunately for me, it just wasn't a part of Saturday Night Live that I paid that much attention to, and I know that makes me a loser and that I'm just not in on a lot of the jokes and things that were going on. It's not to say that she's not funny, she's just not readily available in things that I am pursuing. While I'm still watching a bunch of stuff that she ends up being in, I wouldn't say that I seek out movies or roles that she is in. And, I would love to hear more about, her singing and stuff like that. I haven't seen it come through in like a movie, which would be a great way to like showcase that. But obviously she just doesn't really care. Like her movies are about acting and that's what that is. But just kind of like I'm looking at the scores that I have for other actors that we've done, and I'm kind of basing mine based on where I think she falls in there. And so I'm going to end up giving her a 56. We'll go with a 56. Just, I don't know if I could rightfully put her above or below some specific people. She does it because she loves it. She doesn't have to do it with PTA being the husband and everything, but she wants to do it. She wants to be her own person, and I'm all for it. I just wish that she did some other things that were outside the Happy Madison universe. And so,
I'm with you, Warren. When I looked at my scores, I originally had her closer to Pratt, and I was like, I can't score her higher than Chris Pratt. I got to give her a few points lower, so I think it makes sense. All right, Case, round us out.
I think she might be the most pure entertainer of anybody that we've looked at. Her background and her life story are just so wild and fascinating. And the more you learn about her, the more her characters and performances make sense. And the more I found myself really rooting for her. To me, she has a different type of versatility than a lot of other people we've looked at. Other actors or other performers have had a lot of role diversity in terms of like the different projects they take. She has the ability to have a lot of versatility and a lot of range within the characters that she plays. And I think that's really interesting. And some of you have talked about how incredible her impersonations are and other things like that. She's not just a pure actor, though. And unfortunately, the way we evaluate people in this podcast and the way I've evaluated others in the background, she's just not going to measure up based on the types of projects and the roles that she's been cast in. Throwing all that data and all the stuff you guys talked about in a blender with a little extra sugar and some honey, and I'm going to give her a 65.
All right. Warren, what do we got?
puts Maya Rudolph at a 63.17, which is 22nd, which has her in between Regina Hall and James Marsden.
Oh, so it's right near that 24th for IMDb user and critic score too. Seems pretty fair.
Yeah,
Very fair.
Craig Robinson's
Very
right
fair.
there. Gary Cole's just in front. The only thing that really separates them from her is just more actual like acting rules. I mean, I looked at her 34 film credits. 15 of them are voice work.
If you average her rank in Star Meter, critic ranking, fan ranking, and a box office measurement I use, she's ranked 23rd out of all of our actors.
Man, we're awesome at what we do.
My God. I'm so proud of us. All right, well, Warren, what does she got coming?
She's got a movie coming. It was announced a while ago. Not sure if it's going to be released this year or not, but it's called Connected. Another animated movie. I believe she's playing the mom, where basically technology takes over and is destroying stuff. But there's some entertaining stuff in the trailer, so it's worth a watch.
Looking forward to checking it out. All right, so we got 5 actors we're throwing onto that wheel for the next episode, episode 29. Those 5 actors are Brendan Gleeson, Eugene Levy, Angelica Houston, Zoe Deutsch, and Tika Sumpter. What do we like? What do we don't like of those 5?
I like Gleason and Houston.
Yeah, me too.
I want Eugene Levy. Come on.
Gleason would be really fun.
I would normally say Zoe Deutsch, but give her more time. She's pretty young in her career at this point.
I would agree
Same
with
with
that.
Tika Sumpter. She's young in her career. I can only think of like Medea movies.
With
Go
Zoe
ahead.
Deutsch, you're going to have to watch a ton of like Disney movies. Isn't she? Wasn't she on a ton of tween things?
That feels
Maybe.
correct.
She's
Am I thinking
in
of the right
Buffalo,
person?
which is a really fun movie. Are you thinking of Zooey Deschanel?
No.
Hold on.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, she was on The Sweet Life.
Oh, of Zach and Cody.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't know that much about what I'm reading here.
Yes, the sweet life of Zach and Cody is the name of the full name of the show.
Yeah, James, get your act together. I think I'm on board with Gleason and Houston. Those would be the two I'm looking forward to most. Gleason's in some really good stuff. Eugene Levy's funny though. I've always been a Eugene Levy fan, so
I mean, Schitt's Creek was hysterical.
Sure, and his eyebrows, they're big. Like, I get it. So let's just move on.
Oh my god.
He plays Jim's dad. Oh.
Damn.
You didn't like Best in Show?
No, I did, but when it comes to those three people, Eugene Levy would be dead last of ones that I would rather talk about.
All I know about Angelica Houston is the Addams Family. Maybe that's probably be good for me to catch up on some stuff about her.
The Witches.
She's in some great movies. I know this is not a pro Woody Allen podcast, but she's in one of my favorite movies by Woody Allen.
You talked about Choke, right? She's in that movie with Rockwell.
Yeah, she's Rockwell's mom. She's in a good amount of Wes Anderson films. And
Oh, that's right.
I want to do Brendan Gleeson says somebody gets to watch In Bruges.
Oh, that's
In Bruges is great.
Calvary is a good movie too. Like, he's got some good stuff, man. But we don't control it. We know who does, and that's The Wheel Decides.
Martindale decides.
All right. Lauren, it was fantastic. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for going on this ride with us. Any outgoing plugs or anything you want to tell the audience about? Any movies you're going to be in? Or any wise words?
Well, I sure hope I will be in some more movies soon. We'll see how this year plays out with filming. It looks like things are starting to pick back up again, and production companies are finding a way to make it work even now. So we'll see.
What are you currently reading?
What am I reading? I'm reading a book called The Midnight Library.
Very
I
meta.
think the author's name is Matt Haig. It's this afterlife where you go and there's all these books and you can choose an alternate ending to your life.
Ooh, that sounds enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Black Mirror episode.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was a show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say Dark Mirror, and I was like, that doesn't sound quite right.
So I also like to do a lot of audiobooks, and I like to listen to audiobooks of actors. So maybe that's a good tip for you all as well. I'm listening to an audiobook by Julie Andrews right now, and she has some fascinating stories from her film career.
Make a note, if we ever cover Julie Andrews, we'll be knocking.
I've got another question or two. What are your genuine thoughts on Permantes?
It's okay.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
I'm glad that you're honest about that.
An acceptable answer.
Have you had the pancakes from Pamela's?
Those are amazing.
Those are amazing. Okay. Lauren, you can come back whenever you like.
That's the endorsement.
There you go. You pass the Warren food test, and that's all you needed to get back in the door. If you ever actually run into Tom Hanks on a set, you have to tell him to join our podcast.
Yep.
We'll be forever grateful, but we appreciate you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you,
fun.
Lauren. Hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you.
Next podcast is going to land on February 11th. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Munsons at Movies. You can find us on Instagram at Munsons at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from the Munsons?
They don't use deodorant, and they only take bubble baths.
All right, Munsons out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?